And it is nothing to do with ego, wealth, or status. It has everything to do with service, humility, and an unyielding dedication to impacting the lives of others. And me, Nikki, I need to tell you this. I am so proud of the leadership we have in global peace. Let's talk, because these are Madiba leaders. They work on their own voluntarily for peace, and they are just amazing. So I'm calling them Madiba team. So, living through the darkest days of apartheid, Mandela remained anchored to values, and values are very important. Anchored to values of freedom, equality, and human dignity, alongside other giants of peace like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King. He proved that the most powerful weapon against injustice is not violence, but the fierce, resolute commitment to non-violent communication and reconciliation. He didn't just fight for a new South Africa. He modeled the way for humanity to live together. As we celebrate his birthday today, let us remember his famous reminder: it is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it. May this event today inspire all of us to carry that torch forward in our own communities, our workplaces, and daily lives. Thank you all so much for being here to honor his purpose. We can now start the Zoom. Thank you so much.
So, should we start with the conference?
Yes, Sakshi, please start.
So, as said, it always seems impossible until it's done. Good afternoon, distinguished dignitaries, respected mentors, inspiring youth leaders, team speakers, and participants joining us from different countries of the world. Today, I invite each one of you to pause for just a moment and truly reflect on these words. The quote, it always seems impossible until it's done. History has repeatedly shown us that the greatest transformations were once dismissed as impossible. The abolition of apartheid seemed impossible. Equality across races seemed impossible. Freedom for millions seemed impossible. Yet, one man chose courage over comfort, hope over hatred, and forgiveness over revenge. That man was Nelson Mandela. His story was never merely about politics. It was a story of extraordinary resilience, a story of unwavering humanity, a story of choosing reconciliation when the world expected retaliation. After spending about 27 years behind prison walls, Nelson Mandela emerged not with bitterness, but with an even greater commitment to peace, justice, and unity. Few individuals have demonstrated moral courage. His legacy reminds us that true leadership is not measured by power, but by the ability to heal divisions, inspire hopes, and unite people beyond differences. So today, as we commemorate International Nelson Mandela Day, we do not simply celebrate the life of an extraordinary leader. We celebrate an idea, the idea that compassion is stronger than hatred, that dialogue is more powerful than violence, that justice belongs to each and everyone. And above all of that, that every single individual possesses the capacity to change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that has never been more connected by technology, yet often feels divided by conflict. inequality, misunderstanding, and prejudice. Every day we hear about wars, humanitarian crisis, climate challenges, displacement, growing intolerance. In such times, Mandela's vision becomes more than history. It becomes a roadmap for our future. His life teaches us that peace is not merely the absence of conflict. It is the presence of justice. It is opportunity. It is humanity beyond nationality. This year's dialogue, Global Solidarity Today, Lessons from Madiba, could not be more timely than this accurate moment. And no generation can shape a better tomorrow without choosing empathy over indifference. What makes today's gathering most impressive and meaningful is that this conversation is being led by young voices from across the world, from Mexico, from Uganda, from India, Afghanistan, and beyond. Young leaders who represent different cultures, different perspectives, different experiences, yet are united by one common purpose, which is to build a more peaceful, more inclusive environment and act as architects of change. Today, these future leaders are not waiting for tomorrow. They are already speaking, they are already inspiring, and they are already creating changes. It is now my privilege to serve as the moderator for today's conference. My name is Sakshi, and I warmly welcome each one of you to this global celebration of Nelson Mandela enduring legacy. Over the next few hours, we will be hearing powerful insights, inspiring perspectives, and meaningful conversations from leaders across boundaries. Because ultimately, Nelson Mandela's greatest legacy does not belong to history, it belongs to each one of us. With that spirit, let us begin this celebration of hope, humanity, and global solidarity. Once again, welcome to the International Nelson Mandela Day 2026 conference organized by Global Peace. Let's talk. Thank you. Every meaningful dialogue begins with a vision, and every vision is strengthened by leaders who dedicate themselves to creating positive changes. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to invite Ms. Nikki Ma'am, whose unwavering commitment to peace building and global collaboration continues to inspire countless individuals across communities. Ma'am, we are truly grateful for your presence today. It is my pleasure to invite you to deliver your opening remarks. The virtual stage is all yours. Ma'am, welcome.
Hello, Nikki
Nikki
ma'am.
ma'am, could we please have you?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Would you like me to start?
Ma'am, we want you to start with your opening remarks and we truly
Okay,
want you
thank
to
you.
want to
Okay, thank
learn
you.
from
Thank
you.
you. Okay, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you for joining from so many different parts of the world. Thank you so much for logging in today as we gather virtually to celebrate the birthday and enduring legacy of Nelson Mandela. Before we begin, just some rules. Please keep your microphones off. Only when you're talking, then you put your microphones on. So, my message today is a tribute to servant leadership. Today is not just a look back at history, it is a call to action. We are here to honor a man who redefined power. Nelson Mandela, our beloved Madiba, showed the world that true leadership has absolutely nothing to do with ego, wealth, or status. It has everything to do with service, humility, and an unyielding dedication to impacting the lives of others. And I want to add here that me, Nikki DePina, I am so proud of the people that are serving in Global Peace Let's Talk, because these leaders are incredibly focused on impacting the lives of others. And I'm always just so proud of them. So, just going back, living through the darkest days of apartheid, Mandela remained anchored to the values of freedom, equality, and human dignity. Alongside other giants of peace like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King, he proved that by the most powerful weapon against injustice is not violence. It is the fierce, resolute commitment to non-violent communication and reconciliation. He didn't just fight for a new South Africa, he modeled a new way for humanity to live together. As we celebrate his birthday today, let us remember his famous reminder: it is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it. May this virtual space today inspire each and every one here to shine the torch into their communities, workplaces, and daily lives. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here to honor his purpose. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inspiring. It is now my pleasure to introduce my fellow moderator, Mr. Janet Pereira, whose commitment to fostering meaningful dialogue truly reflects the spirit of today's event. I now invite him to share his thoughts and take the program forward. Over to you, Mr. Janet.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. It's absolutely a pleasure to connect with everyone, especially on a very historic day, because every July 18th, we are celebrating the legacy of Nelson Mandela, a person who has inspired millions of activists, ambassadors, advocates, educators, researchers for peace building, for reconciliation, for international development. So, on this very special day, we at Global Peace Let's Talk have decided to have a panel of young people. Now, why is this important? Is something that I want to briefly speak about, because we talk about the legacy of Nelson Mandela. And the legacy of Nelson Mandela is to live with young people who are the leaders of today, who are the leaders of tomorrow. So, if we want to create a better world, especially with prosperous leadership, we talk of servant leadership as a philosophy that is embedded in Global Peace Let's Talk. And in order to carry forward servant leadership, we need young people who actually are inspired by Nelson Mandela. So today, Sakshi and I, we are privileged to introduce to you a set of young speakers who are ready to share their insights on Nelson Mandela, how Nelson Mandela connects to their life as a young person, how Nelson Mandela's philosophy is guiding their present and future. So that is what we call together as solidarity. Solidarity is working together. Solidarity is being inspired by each other. Solidarity is looking at history, connecting to the present. Solidarity is how we gain momentum together. So Global Peace Let's Talk is ready to hear to some of these amazing young voices from around the world. Now, before we proceed to this very important panel, Sakshi and I thought we need to share the message on International Nelson Mandela Day presented by the United Nations. So let me try to share the screen and bring to your attention the uh, message by the United Nations. Uh,
Today, we honor the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela, a towering figure of peace, reconciliation, justice, and human rights. This year's theme reminds us that Madiba was also a clear-eyed champion of poverty eradication and equality. He knew that ending poverty is not an act of charity, it's an act of justice, and a duty that belongs to us all. We live in a world where inequality is becoming entrenched, where wealth accrues disproportionately for a lucky few, while many struggle to afford basic needs like food, water, shelter, and education. And where years of poverty-fighting progress have been stalled by conflict, economic shocks, and climate disasters. Like Madiba, we can all play a part in building fair economies and inclusive societies. By investing in decent work, universal health coverage, quality education, and social protection systems. By scaling up financing and reforming the international financial architecture so developing countries get the funds and debt relief they need. And by building economies rooted in renewable energy for people and planet. I've always been inspired by Madiba's life and belief that when people stand together, nothing is impossible. The future is in our hands. Today and every day, let's carry forward Mandela's vision of a just, inclusive, equal, and peaceful world.
Thank you so much. So I hope you were able to hear the message from the United Nations Secretary General on International Madiba Day. So now let's proceed to the moment we all have been waiting for, that is to hear from our young speakers about how Mandela inspires them, how the work of Mandela is what they carry forward as young people trying to create a legacy. So, Sakshi, over to you to introduce the young speakers and to ensure that they get the opportunity and the platform to present what they want to present on this very special occasion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. Our first speaker is a remarkable example of how education, literature, and service can come together to inspire meaningful changes. Miss Mariam Kiswal from Afghanistan is an accomplished author with 5 published books to her name. Recognized for her academic excellence, she has been awarded scholarships with both the Indian and the Germany government. She currently serves as a volunteer German language teacher with the German Red Cross and is an active member of the Afghanistan chapter of World Beyond War, contributing to global efforts for peace, non-violence, and international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm virtual welcome to Ms. Mariam Kiswat. We are honored to have you with us today. The virtual stage is yours, Ms. Mariam.
Thank you, Darshivani. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you for organizing this event and for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I truly appreciate being here. Let me start my speech with a powerful quote from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which is used to change the world. I believe that not only education but also knowledge and awareness can change the way we see life and understand the challenges around us. When we look at the history, we can see that many brave people who refuse to simply accept unfair situations and all limitations were able to create positive changes in their countries and in the world. Nelson Mandela was one of those people uh, through his that he through his knowledge and courage he showed that one person can make a meaningful difference in the lives of millions of people. Today is a very special day because we celebrate International Nelson Mandela Day, and this day reminds us that one person can make the world a better place for future generations through courage, kindness, and determination. For me, Nelson Mandela is a great role model. He is His life inspires me to believe that no matter how difficult life becomes, we should never give up on justice, equality, and peace. Mandela taught us that real change does not happen easily, but it starts with hope and willingness to take action. He showed that the word forgiveness is stronger. He showed to world that forgiveness is stronger than anger and than understanding people from different backgrounds can bring peace. His life teaches us that everyone has the ability to help others and create positive change, even through small actions. Every year on 18 July, people around the world honor Nelson Mandela and his lifelong fight against apartheid and justice. He spent 27 years in prison, yet after his release, he chose forgiveness instead of revenge. He worked to unite his country and become the first Black president of South Africa. One of the most meaningful traditions of this day is the 67 minutes of service. People are encouraged to spend 67 minutes helping others because Mandela devoted 67 years of his life to serving humanity. Even a small act of kindness can make a difference. Nelson Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." These words remind us to stay hopeful and never stop trying to make the world better. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It was highly inspiring to know from you the importance of education and the role of Nelson Mandela in using it as a weapon of change. Moving further, our next speaker, Mr. Bruno Stegura from Mexico, is a passionate communicator, educator, and peace advocate dedicated to empowering young people through education and dialogue. As the founder of the Polymatando, a peace ambassador of Global Peace Let's Talk International, and as a collaborator with PEPICE, he actively promotes youth leadership, sustainable communities, and a culture of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Bruno Segura. The virtual stage is yours, Mr. Bruno. Mr. Bruno.
Thank you so much, Sashi, Marta, Yanith. Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here again in Nelson Mandela Day at GPLT. It's been such a while since I joined this organization, and it's been so nice to meet all of you. And well, um, for what I've got to say, um, Mariam already said this famous quote of Nelson Mandela that education is the most powerful weapon to fight violence, it was something like that. I can't remember it as it is. Well, I believe that education it's a really important part of building peace, yes, but I believe that education is nothing without the stories we tell as a society. Some philosophers, like, for example, the worldwide known Yuval Noah Harari, tells in their different studies that the world is composed by different stories. Even money is a story that we all believe, and it's because of that has its value. Um, Sometimes we imagine that stories are not so important, just in books that tell about fairy tales and some things that don't really affect our daily lives. But even those fantasy stories, I believe, that have a really important impact in our lives. How can a story about dragons make a change in our lives? Well, in the 60s of the last century, there was a book that you may all know called The Lord of the Rings. That was a really entertaining book about fantasy, about rings, about some other creatures called hobbits. And in that time, there was also a peaceful movement with the hippie community that adopted the Lord of the Rings, this really fantasy book, as their most important group. As their most important book. I mean, uh, so what they wanted was to live as a hobbit in a community, in respect with nature. So even that really fantasy book made an important change in our society for peace. So there are other stories in our lives that impact us in a very, very extreme way. For example, Nelson Mandela also talked about justice, and justice, I believe, that it's nothing but a group of stories collected in a book called a constitution that writes the rules of that story. And it's because that we all believe, and there's a system that make it work, that justice can be possible. But there's a problem in nowadays society, and it is that justice is not an story written by the people, but by a few people, that powerful people, rich people, that manipulate the justice as they will. So what I want to say with this is that if we realize that all of those institutions, like banks, like money, is just a story that we all believe, because I mean, what is a bill but a paper with some numbers and a face in it, that we can go to a store and buy things with that paper? It's because that we all know that that paper is valuable, that it has its value. So what I'm trying to say with this is not that it doesn't work, that it's fake. No, not at all, because it works, and I think that it can. It is a useful tool in nowadays society. What I say is that as we build in the past some other stories, like the ones that today are making people poor, making people go through hunger, are the same stories that we can change today. One of the main stories that are affecting people around the world, it's, for example, the way we interpret the capitalism. It's not that the capitalism itself is bad. It's the way that we've been applying it in our world. It's the way that we've been understanding that the richer we get, the better it is, and then we can't share that wealth with other people, and that's a real important problem. Today we have an story called private property that it's really poisoning society, I believe, because these ideas of that what is mine can be for other people, that the money is always to be kept locked with greedy interest. And I think that it's really interesting to watch the story, the history of a polymath that lived in the 17th century, around that 18th century, I believe, Alexander von Humboldt. He was a biologist, an explorer that came to my country, Mexico, so long ago, and he had a dream. He wanted to try to explore and understand the world. His story is interesting because of what he wrote after he came to America. When he was at Venezuela, he visited a lake. That lake was called, uh, well, there was a lake near to Caracas in Venezuela. And in that lake, he discovered something really interesting that affected the way we understand biology nowadays. In that lake, he noticed that the lake was smaller than before. And it was because of all the lands that grew corn and some other types of grain around there, that used all the water, that occupied all the water of the area, and destroyed the ecosystem around it. And I know that Nelson Mandela did not talk about ecology, but it's interesting to understand this, because the way Alexander discovered that what people around that lake affected the lake and made it smaller. I think that it's the same way that society works. The people around us really affect what we live. The things that other people do, even if they live in India, even if they live in the UK, even if they live in Mexico, we affect each other. And nowadays, with internet, with all the connection that exists, it affects us even more. So Humboldt actually already in the 18th century said that in his books. He also criticized a lot about the racism in America. And it was one of the first people that inspired the next generations of pacificists in our life, in history. I mean, so the lake I mentioned earlier is the Lago Valencia in Venezuela, just so you can know the name. So then if people like Humboldt, like Mandela, have been trying to make a peaceful world since so long ago, then why do we also have war in our days? Well, there's a lot of interest in war, especially economic interests. So that's where my argument about the stories we tell and that we believe as a society has an important role. Because if we modify this story that we believe as a society, if we start to believe maybe with some other narratives that are not only the greedy, to be greedy about the money, then maybe we can start to forget that narrative in which money was the most important part of our lives, and that even was worth a lot of lives in war, and it is not. So if we start to put the human lives uh, before the money, I think that that would be a better change for our world. We can change our story. It's just a matter of we all believing that story that we want to make for the world of today and also for the tomorrow. Because sometimes there's people who are pessimists about war, about life, that they say that I don't know, that the war is gonna end us, that climate change is gonna end us, that hate among humans is gonna end us. I believe that we have the opportunity to change the narratives of our society, and then also change those ideas about greed, about racism, about yeah. So there's a lot of ideas that discriminate others. In here in Mexico, I've tried to uh, make known the word adult centrism. I don't know if in English it even exists, but it's also a kind of racism that also Nelson Mandela mentioned when he talked about the youths being an important part of our society. So thank you so much, and thank you, Global Peace, for this space, this meeting for the youth, so we can talk and express ourselves. And I believe that if we keep doing these networks about around the world, connecting young people to talk and share ideas and discuss them, it's an important step also to remodulate the story, the main story for our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bruno, for
Thank you so
sharing
much.
insights. I think something that Bruno said is something that I want to further emphasize, because he told that the world today in which we live is full of horror, terror, violence, and we have found it's very difficult to be optimistic. It's very difficult to have a positive ray of hope because there is pessimism. So I think what Bruno said is that we need to take the lessons of Nelson Mandela, particularly because when Mandela in prison, he was there in prison for I think around 27 years, yet he was very resilient. When his eldest son died due to a car crash, Nelson Mandela was denied permission to go and visit the funeral or to take part in the funeral of the eldest son. Then Nelson Mandela says, I do not have words to express the sorrow or the loss I felt. It left a hole in my heart that never can be filled. So you can see Nelson Mandela was having a very, uh, I would say, a pessimistic time. But still, when he came out of prison, right, he was telling us, I have lost 27 years of my life in prison, but I tell you now, I have forgiven them. He has forgiven the people that went, and imprisoned him, treated him very inferiorly. He was telling in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, that he was considered as a prisoner of the lowest classification. He was mistreated, maltreated. But once he came back 27 years after, he forgave he forgave everyone. And that is what lessons we can take from the day of Nelson Mandela. And thank you, Bruno, for bringing that out nicely and connecting it to the real world in which we as young people, as adults, live. Over to
Thank you
you,
so much, Janet.
Bruno. Over to you, Sakshi, to invite the next speaker.
Next speaker is another inspiring voice from India. Palak Yadav, aged 17, is a student of the School of Specialized Excellence in Ganj, representing the vision and potential of today's youth. She embodies the spirit of leadership, compassion, and positive change that Nelson Mandela believed in. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Ms. Palak Yadav. The virtual stage is yours, Palak.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. And firstly, I want to thank Veda sir, Nikki ma'am, Martha ma'am, and Joyful Talisman for giving me this opportunity, and uh, a GPLT for giving me the stage to speak today. So I can start now. So the title of my speech is The World Mandela Dreamt of. So when I think about Nelson Mandela, I don't just think of a great leader. I think of someone who believed that every person deserves to live with dignity, equality, and respect. His dream was never limited to one country. It was a vision for a world where people are valued not because of who they are, where they come from, or what they believe, but simply because they are human. Next slide, please. Mandela's life is a powerful reminder that change is possible. He spent 27 years in prison for standing against apartheid, a system built on racial discrimination. When he finally walked free, he chose forgiveness and reconnection instead of hatred. That decision shaped the future of South Africa and inspired millions of people around the world. His leadership showed us that courage is not only about fighting injustice, but also about creating peace after it. Next slide. Looking at the world today, we can see that we are more connected than ever before. We share ideas, instantly work across borders, and come together during global crisis. Yet many communities still experience conflict, inequalities, and discrimination. This is where global solidarity becomes important. It reminds us that our responsibilities do not end at national borders. The challenges faced by one part of the world eventually becomes challenge for all of us, and the solution require us to work together. Next slide. One area where this is especially important is gender equality. The chart on the screen shows that women continue to face unequal opportunities across different sectors. Around 61.5% of women work in the service sector, where the contribution often receive less recognition. Around 25% of women work in agriculture, although many still have limited access to resources and ownership. And only 13% are employed in industry, showing that women remain underrepresented in several technical fields, I would say. Leadership tells a very similar story. Women hold only 23% of parliamentary seats worldwide, and only 4% of Fortune 500 companies have women as CEOs. These figures are more than numbers, actually. They represent ideas, talent, and leadership that the world cannot afford to overlook. A society becomes stronger when everyone has an equal opportunity to participate and lead. Next slide, please. Gender equality is only one part of the larger picture. Around the world, more than 120 million people have been forced to leave their homes because of conflict and violence. Around 250 million children are still out of school. Many people with disabilities continue to face barriers that limit their participation, and young people are often left out of decisions that shape their own future. When people are excluded, everyone loses. Global solidarity asks us to notice these gaps and work together to close them. Next slide. So, what can we learn from Mandela today? His life teaches us to listen with empathy, respect differences, and choose dialogues even when it feels difficult. Peace grows when people are willing to understand each other. Inclusion begins with everyday choices, how we speak, how we listen, and how we treat the people around us. As young people, we already have the ability to make the difference. Every conversation that encourages understanding, every action that challenges discrimination, and every effort to include someone who feels unheard helps build a stronger community. We may not solve every global problem overnight, but we all can contribute to a world that is more compassionate, more equal, and more united. And I would like to end with one of Nelson Mandela's most well known words: it always seems impossible until it's done. I believe the world he dreamt of is still within our reach. It depends on the choices we make, the voices we choose to hear, and the courage we show in standing up for one another. If we continue to lead with dignity, equality, and humanity, then Mandela's legacy will remain alive, not only in history, but in the future that we build together. Thank you.
Thank you, Palak, for that heartfelt and inspiring message. Your reminder that no one should be left behind beautifully reflects the essence of Nelson Mandela's vision, a world built on inclusion, equality, and compassion. Your words have encouraged us to reflect on our shared responsibility to ensure that every individual is seen, heard, and given the opportunity to thrive. Once again, thank you for sharing your thoughtful perspective with us. Moving further, our next speaker, Mr. Jonathan Dajumbe from Uganda, is the founder and executive director of Action for Sustainable Communities and the founder of Innovation School, a refugee-led initiative in Nakivale refugee settlement. A passionate advocate for inclusive education and youth empowerment, his work continues to transform the lives of displaced children and young people through education and community-led development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Jonathan Daginde. The virtual stage is yours, Mr. Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I'm enough.
We hear you, but really, really far.
Okay. Am I audible enough?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, so in case you don't hear me, please let me know because I'm in the camp and network is a bit complicated here.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. It's a great honor and privilege to stand before you today as we celebrate Nelson Mandela's Day, a day dedicated to remembering the life, values, and legacy of a great leader who showed the world the power of courage, forgiveness, education, and service. We all know that Nelson Mandela once said, "It is always impossible until it is done." His life reminds us that even in the face of great challenges, we must never lose hope. He believed that every person has the ability to contribute to positive change. So coming back to my context and my journey as a refugee coming from a displacement background, I have faced myself the challenges and I've seen the challenges that my fellow refugees are facing. I've seen how difficult life can be when children and families lack opportunities. But I've also seen the power of hope, education, and community support. So through my work with my organization, I have had the privilege of working with refugee children and communities, supporting access to education and creating spaces where young people can discover their potential. So this experience has shown me that when we invest in people, we are not only changing.
Jonathan, sorry to disturb you. Can you turn off your camera and then speak because your voice is breaking? Maybe, yeah, that would be really great because we want to hear what you're saying. Thank you so much.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe let me start over. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much, the Global Peace Next Door, for giving me the opportunity to be the speaker on this important occasion of today. It's a great honor and privilege to stand before you today as we celebrate Nelson Mandela Day, a day that is dedicated to remembering the life, the values, and legacy of a great leader who showed the world the power of change, forgiveness, education, and service. We all know what Nelson Mandela once said, that it always seems impossible.
Jonathan,
Yes,
your
please.
voice is fading away.
Oh. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah,
It
but
could
it's
be
fading.
also
I think
maybe
the problem with the
you put your fingers in on the microphone. It could also be possible. Sometimes.
yeah, just keep your phone somewhere without touching it, and then then it would be fine.
Yeah.
Because we hear you well, and sometimes we don't hear you properly.
Am I audible now?
Now it's perfect.
I don't know. Am I audible?
Yes,
Am I
we can
audible
hear
now?
you.
Okay, I was saying, as we all know, what Nelson Mandela once said, it's always seems impossible until it's done. So his life reminds us that even if in the face of great challenges, we must never lose hope. Because Nelson Mandela himself believed that every person has the ability to contribute to positive change. Talking about my journey as a refugee who was fled from my home country and being in a new country because of displacement for over 10 years, I have seen how refugees community have been finding difficulties in raising their children and supporting their families because of lack of opportunities. But I've also seen the power of hope, education, and community support. Through my work with my organization, I've also had the privilege of working with refugee children and communities, supporting access to education and creating spaces where young people can discover their potential. This experience has shown me that when we invest in people, we are not only changing individual lives, we are building stronger communities. Nelson Mandela legacy teaches us that leadership is not about position or power. It's about service. It's
Jonathan?
about
Jonathan?
hello.
Hello, Nadia. We can't hear you. Your voice is
Yeah, so
fading.
the problem is
Yeah.
we sometimes hear you clearly, but then you just fade away, your audio fades away, and we are unable to hear you like for 30 seconds, then you come back and then you go again.
Yeah.
Okay, let
So
me
I
say 2
think go
seconds.
off and then you can come back on again. Let's try and fix it.
Yeah, let me try
Okay.
it. Let me try
Okay.
it.
I think bring in the next speaker. You can bring in the next speaker to give him chance to see if he can fix it.
Sure, ma'am. So our next speaker is a promising young voice from India. At just 16 years of age, Mr. Bharat Verma, a student of CM Shri School, Sector 5, Dwarka, represents the energy, vision, and leadership of today's youth. His participation is a reminder that young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but active change makers of today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Bharat Verma. The virtual stage is yours, Bharat.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, good evening, distinguished guests, respected dignitaries, honored speakers, teachers, and friends joining us from different parts of the world. It is truly an honor to speak before you on Nelson Mandela International Day and be a part of the global dialogue on one of the most important ideas humanity has ever known, solidarity. Before I begin, I'd like to ask you a simple question. If every invention humanity has ever created suddenly disappeared, the internet, electricity, satellite, smartphones, artificial intelligence, every machine, every algorithm, what would remain? The answer is simple. We would still have each other. And perhaps that is the greatest reminder of all. Long before we built civilizations, we built relationships. Long before we created technology, we created trust. Long before we learned how to communicate with machines, we learned how to care for another human being. Maybe, just maybe, the most advanced technology human has ever possessed has never been artificial intelligence. It has always been human compassion. Every great civilization, every great scientific breakthrough, every moment for justice, and every lasting peace agreement begin not with a machine, but with a choice. The choice to recognize the humanity in another person. A choice to believe that someone else's dignities matter just as much as our own. This is why we gather here today, not merely to celebrate the birthday of Nelson Mandela, not merely to honor the first democratically elected president of South Africa or a Nobel Prize laureate. We gather because, in a world advancing faster than ever before, Mandela reminds us of something we must never leave behind. He reminds us that progress without compassion is merely speed, innovation without ethics is merely power, and intelligence without humanity is simply knowledge that has forgotten its purpose. Today, humanity stands at a remarkable moment in history. We are exploring distant planets, building machines that can think, and connecting billions of people in an instant. Yet at the same time, we continue to witness war, growing inequalities, loneliness, discrimination, and division. Never before we have been so connected through technology, and never before has the need for genuine human connection has been too urgent. As we stand here on Nelson Mandela's International Day, I believe the question before us is not simply what did Mandela sir achieve? History has already answered that. The important question is what kind of history will our generation choose to write? Because perhaps the greatest tribute we can pay to Madiba is not remembering his legacy, it is continuing it. Okay. On the 11th of February 1990, the world watched as Nelson Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison after 27 years of imprisonment. It was more than release of a prisoner. It was a moment that would redefine history. Around the world, people celebrated the end of an era of oppression. Yet I often think that the most extraordinary part of the day was not that Mandela walked out of prison. It was that what he chose to leave behind. He left behind bitterness. He left behind revenge. He left behind the belief that pain must always be answered with more pain. Imagine carrying that 27 years of injustice, isolation, and suffering. Most of us understand if anger become our identity. History itself would have expected revenge. Instead, Mandela sir gave humanity something far more powerful, forgiveness. Not because forgiveness erased the past, but because he understood that it could shape the future. There is a quote by Mandela that has stayed with me ever since I first read it. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. These words are simple, yet they carry an extraordinary truth. Hatred rarely destroys the person we direct it towards first. It quietly begins by destroying us. Mandela sir understood that a nation could never heal if people remained prisoners of yesterday. His leadership was unlike the world often celebrated today. He did not lead making people fear him. He led by making people believe in another. He did not seek victory over his opponents. He sought future in which his opponents could become partners in rebuilding a nation. That is an incredibly rare kind of courage. It is much easier to win an argument than it is to win back trust. It is much easier to defeat an enemy than it is to transform one into a neighbor. Even though is a word that is difficult to translate because is much more than a word. It is a way of seeing the world. It is often expressed through the simple phrase, I am because we are. I repeat, I am because we are. At first, those five words may sound poetic, but the more we reflect on them, the more revolutionary they become. In a world that constantly encourages us to ask, how can I get ahead? Ubuntu gently asks us a different question. How can we rise together? It reminds us that humanity is not something we possess alone. It is something we discover in our relationships with one another. There is a beautiful American story often shared explain this philosophy. An anthropologist placed a basket of fruit beneath a tree and invited a group of children to race toward it. He told them whoever reached the basket first could keep all the fruit. Instead of running against one another, the children, hand held, ran together, reached the basket together, and shared every piece of fruit. When the anthropologist asked why they had done that, one child simply replied, Ubuntu. How can one of us be happy if everyone else is sad? Whether the story is historical or symbolic, it is almost irrelevant. Stories survive because they reveal truths. And this one reminds us that the greatest victories are not the ones we achieve alone. They are the ones we celebrate together. As someone deeply fascinated by science, I often find myself looking at the world through another lens as well. In quantum physics, we learn that the universe is not always shaped by biggest forces. Sometimes the smallest interaction can influence entire system in ways we never expected. Tiny particles, almost impossible to see, can determine outputs on such a larger scale. It made me wonder, what if human values work in the exactly same way? What if a single act of kindness is never just a single act of kindness? What if one conversation can restore someone's hope? At Joyful Talisman, we believe that meaningful change does not begin only in parliaments, international organizations, or world summits, or a meeting like this. It begins in classrooms, in homes, in neighborhoods, and in conversations like the one we are having today. Every smile offered by a stranger, every child who is encouraged instead of ignored, every bridge built between communities instead of walls raised between them becomes part of something much more greater than itself. None of the actions may appear extraordinary on their own, but together they create a ripple that can travel farther than we could ever imagine. Perhaps that is the lesson Mandela sir left us. Great change is rarely the result of an extraordinary event. It is the result of millions of ordinary people choosing extraordinary values day after day. Ubuntu teaches us why we belong to one another. Quantum values remind us that even our smallest choices matter. Together, they show us that global solidarity is not an ideal reserved for world leaders. It is a responsibility that belongs to every single one of us. Okay. The world Mandela sir left us and the world we are inheriting are very different. Today, humanity stands at the edge of extraordinary possibility. We are developing artificial intelligence capable of solving problems once we thought impossible. We are exploring distant planets, decoding the mystery of humanity's genome, and witnessing scientific breakthrough at a pace that previous generation could scarcely imagine. Perhaps the greatest paradox of the 21st century is that we have learned how to connect billions of devices, but we are still learning how to connect billions of hearts. Technology has given us the ability to communicate instantly across oceans. Yet, true understanding still demands something no machine can replace: empathy. Artificial intelligence can process information, but it cannot choose compassion. Algorithms can recommend solutions, but they cannot teach us forgiveness. Data can measure progress, but only human values can determine whether the progress actually serves humanity. As young people, we are often told that we are the leaders of tomorrow. I believe we are already the leaders of today. Every conversation we have, every choice we make, every prejudice we challenge, and every act of kindness we extend is already shaping the future. Leadership is not defined by age, position, or life. It is defined by the courage to act when it would be easier to remain silent, by witnessing to build bridges where others build walls, and by the determination to leave the world even a little kinder than we found. If Mandela sir taught us anything, it is that history is not changed by extraordinary people alone. It is changed by ordinary people who refuse to accept that compassion is impossible. As I come to the end of my thoughts today, I find myself returning to the very first question asked. If every invention humanity has ever created suddenly disappeared, what would remain? The answer was now, as it was then, simple. We would still have each other. And perhaps that has always been enough. Because long before humanity built bridges of steel, we built bridges of trust. Long before we connected continents through technology, we connected hearts through compassion. Every civilization that has stood the test of the time has been built not only by brilliant minds, but by people who believed another person's dignity was worth protecting. That is the legacy Mandela sir left us behind. Not a legacy of politics alone, but a legacy of possibility. He showed us that forgiveness is not weakness, it is one of the greatest expressions of strength. He showed us that reconciliation is not forgetting the past, but choosing to not let the past define the future. Above all, he reminded us that our humanities grow stronger every time we choose understanding over prejudice, dialogue over division, and hope over fear. Nelson Mandela sir once said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived it. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will define the significance of the life we live." I believe those words not just a reflection of one extraordinary life, they are an invitation to every one of us. So, as we leave the dialogue today, let us simply remember what Mandela sir left us. Let us continue his work. Let us build a future where innovation is guided by ethics, where leadership is measured by service, where diversity is celebrated as strength, where compassion is never seen as weakness. Let us choose to become a generation that proves progress is not only measured by technologies we create, but the humanity we preserve. Because in the end, our greatest achievement will never be the intelligence of our machines. It will be the compassion of our heart. It will be the what we accomplished alone. It will always be what we accomplished together. 8 billion people, one humanity, one planet, one choice. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you your reflections on human too. I am because we are, and you're reminded that even the smallest act of kindness can create a ripple of change beautifully captured by the exact ideology Nelson Mandela followed. We sincerely appreciate your thought provoking address. Moving further, could we please again have Mr. Jonathan with us?
Know if I'm still audible.
Yes,
Am I
Jonathan.
Yeah, you
audible?
are now.
Okay. Am I audible, please?
Yes,
Yes,
go
please.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, Global Peace Let's Talk, in particular, Dr. Nikki, for the invitation to be among the young speakers for today's special day. It's a great honor and privilege to stand here today as we celebrate Nelson Mandela's Day, a day dedicated to remembering the life, values, and legacy of a great leader who showed the world the power of change, forgiveness, education, and service. As we all know, Nelson Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And his life reminds us that even in the face of great challenges, we must never lose hope. He believed that every person has the ability to contribute to positive change. And if I talk about my own context or my own journey, after fleeing my home country and being in Uganda as a refugee for over 10 years, I have seen how refugee families are suffering. And I've seen how difficult life can be when children and families lack opportunities. But I've also seen the power of hope, education, and community support. Through my organization at the grassroots level in the refugee settlements, I have had the privilege of working with refugee children and communities, supporting access to education and creating spaces where young people can discover their potential. This experience has shown me that when we invest in people, we are not only changing individual lives, we are building stronger communities and a better future as young people. So Nelson Mandela teaches us that leadership is not about position or power. It's about service. It's about asking ourselves as we are reflecting, what can I do to make someone else's life better? What can we do as Global Peace Let's Talk to improve people's life? So today I encourage each one of us to become agent of change. And a small act of kindness Supporting a child education, for example, mentoring a young person, standing for equality in your communities and dignity can create a lasting impact in our society. So as we celebrate Nelson Mandela Day, let us not only remember Madiba with words, but we have to continue building communities where every child has a chance to learn, dream, and succeed. And this is the only way we shall honor Mandela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for your inspiring insights and valuable reflections. It was truly a privilege to hear your perspective. I will now hand over the moderation to my esteemed co-moderator, Mr. Janet Pereira, who will guide us through the next segment of today's program. Over to you, Mr. Janet.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing all very well. We have listened to, I think, 5 inspirational speakers, if I'm not mistaken. And each of these speakers, they have shared with us the importance of carrying forward the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Education, how we can use education, both formal, non-formal, informal, in order to create awareness, in order to create the social change for justice and equality. We have looked at how the resilience of Nelson Mandela helps us to be optimistic, even though the world around us is somewhat pessimistic. We also looked at how Mandela's fight for justice is actually something that can even inspire gender inequality, the fight against gender inequality, in order to have justice, in order to have recognition, representation, women and all genders. We discussed about how the concept of Ubuntu is very important in order to make sure that we have a thriving society. And last but not least, we heard about the importance of servant leadership, or that leadership is not about ego, leadership is not about power, but leadership is about shared responsibility, shared commitment, the lessons that Madiba has all taught us, and the legacy that young people actually carry forward. So I think today's panel was somewhat significant. In most of the panel discussions that we conventionally hold, not just as GPLT, but as the wider society, we ask young people to come and be part of the audience. But that is not what happened today. Previously, we have done this as well. We always try to create opportunities at GPLT for young speakers to come and speak, to share their perspective. And the audience are the adults, the seniors. So we are not considering young people as leaders of the future. We are considering young people as the leaders of today. That is why the entire panel discussion was done by young people. And the audience, the members of the audience, are, social activists, development practitioners with quite a lot of experience. So before I move on to the Q&A session, which is basically your opportunity to ask some questions from the audience, I would like to invite uh, any of you from the audience to share a little bit about feedback about the session and what you think about the young speakers, the insights that they shared, especially as those with more lived experiences than our young people, but especially the passion of the young people, which might have touched your heart. So, anybody who would like to unmute their microphone and share what they think about the panel discussion today, before we move on to the Q&A session.
Well, if no one's asking a question, I would like to congratulate the other speakers. So nice to hear you all. As a young man, I admire your speeches. And how old are you all, Palak, Mariam, and I don't see the other one, Barath. Oh, and Joseph.
Well, can you please repeat what you said? You were not very much audible.
Oh yeah, I was just asking, how old are you, the rest of the speakers?
Well, I am 17.
We find Dr. Nazir would like to speak. He's raising his hand, Janet.
Yes. Dr. Yusufi, please go ahead.
For the information of the House, Dr. Nazir has been a diplomat with the Afghan embassy here in New Delhi, and now he's doing his postdoc in Germany.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it was really great. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you, including Dr. Veda, for all the efforts, all the efforts trying to disseminate nonviolence, celebrating great leaders, and also clearing the path for the young generation. Today, I'm so much happy to see that young people, 17, 20 age, all there, and we as a older generation, we all are there to listen to them and learn from them and also encourage them. This is really great. I think if we continue, if we promote such a culture, the world will be a better place. And it's every generation has a lot to share, and we can exchange both the generation. But unfortunately, this is not happening throughout the world, in the families, in the society, in the schools, and the universities. But it's good that we promote this, we let them talk, we listen, and then, yeah, this is really nice. And I can congratulate every one of the kids and also all of you. It was really great to understand, and also it's also our responsibility to pay our share responsibility promoting goodness in the world. So yes, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thank you so much. We are going to promote their event, the link on Word Beyond War also, and we are going to invite you for our events in the future. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yusufi.
Hello, Gracious. Gracious, we're waiting for you.
Gracious, I think you're unmute. You have to unmute.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here today. It has been a wonderful session. Listening to all the speakers, those from Mexico, those from India, it has been an impactful session. I will tell you that this session took me memory lane to how humanity used to be humanity and what we are making of humanity today, and how we can build and pick up the broken pieces of what is left of humanity. So I listened carefully and I was enjoying the session. Each speaker was mindful, and I would say that each speaker did his or her research carefully, and the session was so impactful. Thank you so much for organizing this session. Thank you for giving the voice to the young people, and thank you for inviting us to enjoy this session together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gracious. Now I would like to invite the audience to ask our young speakers any questions they have. Any questions? So it's the Q&A time. Any questions you have, you can raise the hand and you can either ask a general question from any of the young speakers, or you can ask a specific question. If it is a specific question, you can specify the person you would like to direct the question towards. Now it's the time. If you want, you can use the chat box. However, to make it more personal, to make it more interactive, I would like to hear from you. However, the chat box is also open. Any questions to our young speakers? Yeah. Any questions for our young speakers?
Well,
let me ask Janet one question. Any one of our panel could answer. In this world where there is so much of dialogue deficit, how do you think you can use the practical applications of Madiba, Gandhi, and King's ideas of dialogue into a proper, successful dialogue process? Here, my question comes because recently a very, very senior person from the International Institute of Peace Education, Dr. Janet Gerson, she wants me to have a dialogue with her on the limits to dialogue, the limits to dialogue. So when there is a dialogue deficit, I would really like to know if from any one of the young speakers, what do you think on the limits to dialogue, and how do you think we can use the practical applications of some of these leaders like Madiba and all in the dialogue process? If anyone would like to answer, because young people need to get into dialogues, very important.
Well, of course, I believe that schools are an important part of building peace, as Madiba said. And I think that these kind of dialogues, uh, if listened by teachers and principals, can make a change in their schools. Um, Sometimes there are teachers that have the idea, the initiative to modify a little bit their books and what they teach, so they can add some interesting content like this, like some talks about peace, about books, about science. And I believe that if teachers or principals, or maybe even the people who make those textbooks, can listen to this, they can make a change about that. And that by one side. And also I think that if we start applying some of the proposals or of the ideas that all of the young people said in this webinar, in our families, in our houses, we can start making a change. So yeah, we can be inspired by Nelson Mandela. And if we discuss it and apply it to nowadays, I believe that there's a clear path to work with.
I think the least that one can do is be empathic and be non-violent, as I think people today in the world lack empathy so much that leads to so much conflict. So I think both the thing, non-violence and empathy, should be promoted, especially among young people like us, because we are the future. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Any young speaker would like to add anything to what Bruno and Palak shared in response to the question by Dr. Kundu about the importance of dialogue and how the lessons of uh, prominent activists like Gandhi, Mandela, King can actually inspire young people to take part in dialogue?
Hello, can I come in again? This is Gracious.
Yes, Gracious.
Okay, I'm following up all the way from Cameroon, and we're living in a time where Cameroonians are going through a lot of challenges, conflict, be it in the northern part of Cameroon and the southern part of Cameroon. And this has been going on for more than 10 years today. And I'm looking at this session and I'm rethinking strategy. And this question is ringing in my head. How do what do you believe is the greatest challenge to preserving Mandela's legacy today? And how can ordinary people help address it? So I'm just asking at random. I don't know which speaker can help answer that.
Thank you, Gracious, for that question. Any of the young speakers?
Well, my name is Rajdeep, and I would like to respond to one question which Dr. Kundu had just posted in terms of dialogue. First, I sincerely appreciate all the views which have been given by the youngsters, and thank you, all of you. You are the change to the world, actually. One thing which is very, very important at this stage and which I feel is necessary is that we should, perhaps like Madiba, let go our ego first. It is very, very important for something. We need to cultivate the whole philosophy of letting go our grievances at one point of time, or our ego at one point of time, so that we can and start develop the art of listening to others. It is very, very important. What is happening today, unfortunately, in the world is that we do not have time for anybody. Either you or I or anybody else do not have time for anybody, and we do not want to listen to anybody properly. But what I mean is that in global politics, I'm talking about that particular area. And to have a fruitful dialogue, it is, I think we also have to have an open mind, come with an open mind, not and leave our prejudices behind. Uh, that is very, very important. Global conflicts across, we can see is that uh, there is no restraint in your thoughts, in your beliefs, like, and the conflicts are going on. I mean, it's unending. I mean, and uh, who is suffering the most? It's the common people. It's the schools. It's the education system. It's the children who are victims of war. And I think lessons from Madiba's life. The second question is that you have to cultivate the whole idea of forgiveness. The moment you do not cultivate the idea of forgiveness, you do not really arrive at a reconciliatory stage. Actually, you cannot have compassion when you do not have you cultivate the idea of forgiveness. You cannot have empathy within you. So I personally feel that these are the things which we need to cultivate. What Bruno had just said, I think to an extent, I really endorse his views that uh, children in the schools and teachers have a fantastic role to play today. Not just making them aware of the situations which is around the world, but to continuously make them aware of how they should look at the world from a different perspective, not just and make them grow properly. It's the duty of the teacher is very, very important. It's beyond curriculum, actually. I sincerely feel that every educational system today need and teachers and schools actually uh, can, and must take students outside their schools, not just for excursions, not just to visit different historical museums or archaeological sites or cultural centers, which are very, very necessary, but to take them to villages, to make them see how the world works, how people are working there. Like our children, I feel they do not even know how to play with the mud today. It is like they do not know how to use the soil, and they've not touched the soil or the earth, and perhaps they are so busy with their daily life that this is something which I feel is so important, that you need to teach them the values of life. You need to take them to some fields and make them observe how a farmer cultivates his land, and so that when they come back, they do not waste food. We may talk big things about wasting food and so on and so forth, but until and unless the children see how a farmer toils, uh, they will not realize. So these are certain practical things which I think like has to be implemented beyond and look beyond curriculum actually. Uh, Thank you for giving this time. I just took this time out of turn, and it's a wonderful session. Congratulations to everybody. Uh, so nice to see Nikki ma'am and Martha ma'am here along, and good evening and a rather good afternoon to all of you. Dr. Nazir, it's been a long time with him. I've been hearing about all of you from Dr. Ved Vyas, and it's so nice to see you today here. Uh, Thank you once again, and it like just cultivate those simple qualities so that we can uh, make a chain and spread it across to whoever we meet, so that at least they can benefit from such things which we have learned from our elders. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Dr. Nikki, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, did you ask me, Janet? I do. I just want to ask everybody, please uh, share our hearts in the reaction for Dr. Vedabayas, because he sent me a message and said, "I want to do a Zoom." I said, "All right." He said, "Nelson Mandela." So it was there with him, and look what's happened. So thank you so much from all of us, I'm sure, Dr. Vedabayas, for your love always to impact lives and make a difference. We really appreciate you. And then to Janet, Janet's been away for a long time. I'm really happy that you're back. We've missed you. Um, just, to all of you, you've been amazing. All the speakers, Sakshi for working so hard. This is her first Global Peace Let's Talk Zoom event, and I think she's done really well. So let's celebrate for her. But to each and every one of you, really, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Before we end the session, there is one more question from Gracious on the chat. So I would like to read it out and ask if there are any responses from our young speakers. What lessons from Nelson Mandela's leadership can countries experiencing prolonged conflict, such as Cameroon, adapt to strengthen reconciliation and social cohesion at the community level? So the question is on the chat as well. So if any of the young speakers, Bruno, Palak, Jonathan, Mariam, and Bharat, if you have any responses to this question.
I would like to answer this question. So, the most important lesson that we can actually take from Nelson Mandela's leadership was reconciliation over retaliation. So basically, as we all know, in the South Africa, what happened? But Nelson Mandela sir never took the path of revenge. He decided to reconcile. He decided to connect with the people who did wrong to him. That's a lesson that every country should take. That lesson of coexistence. That we are not each other enemy. Instead, we are each other's friend, and that we all should live together in harmony and peace. That is the most important lesson that we should take from Nelson Mandela's leadership.
Thank you so much, Bharat.
In fact, Janet, just give me a second. In fact, this is an important question, I think, which haunts most of us. And it has been many times I've been having a discussion on this. No extensive conflicts that goes on in different countries across the world. I've been talking this quite often with my friend Dr. Nazik, and what can we do and what needs to be done when we are talking of reconciliation, forgiveness, and other things. Remember the Rwanda genocide, the Serbian issue, the Balkans. But what needs to be done is a critical question. What is the best formula? What can be the thing? And in fact, Dr. Nazir has been part of that war without borders. And it is a very complex thing, I believe, and it's I know we are living in this world of polycrisis. So I think we need more dialogues and discussions on what we need to do. And if you remember, Janet, once we were talking about how to penetrate the systems, like we amongst all of us, we are talking, we are all like-minded people. How to penetrate the systems which don't think like us, the systems which think of violence as the only arbiter of solutions of power and hegemony. So that is a key question. I come once to come back once again. How to penetrate such systems? That is, I'm yet to get a real solution to that. To be very frank.
Thank you, Dr. Kundu. Just a quick reflection based on Dr. Kundu's reflection as well. I think we at GPLT, now we have considered youth as one of the key pillars of the journey towards building peace. And I think that is something very important because the world that we live in today, we have been characterized by age old problems and we have not been able to find solutions. The problems that we face have been created by greed, avarice, hatred, and these are things that I would say that generations have built as generational wealth, even though it's very corrupt. However, young people today, especially the Gen Z, they are thinking differently. They won't change. We can see that in different parts of the world. If you talk about South Asia, in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, even in India, even in countries like Madagascar, Peru, we can see young people are kind of mobilizing differently using technology and trying to change the equation. For example, if I talk about peace building and peace agreements in the past, where have young people been? Have young people been meaningfully engaged in peace building processes? That has not been the case. But today, young people are trying to take ownership. They are trying to take the leadership. They are trying to build an inclusive society. They are trying to have intergenerational trust. We need young people, we need the adults or the elderly generation to work in hand, work together to build peace, not to actually ostracize or marginalize the young voices. So today, by giving the opportunity for young people to be the speakers, and asking the audience to actually reflect on the shared sentiments of our young people, we are trying to create the ripple of change, to give opportunity for young people to play a more powerful role in building peace and also to reverse the corruption, to reverse the hatred, greed, avarice that has, been built over the years. So thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this conversation on International Nelson Mandela Day. I think we are honored to listen to these young voices. They are the legacy of Nelson Mandela. We are quite sure of that. So thank you everyone for joining. And let me quickly deliver a vote of thanks since we have exceeded the time for our discussion. So first and foremost, I would like to thank everyone who are on this call, especially the young speakers, Bruno, Palak, Mariam, Jonathan, Bharat. Your insights have been very powerful. The audience here, they were really mesmerized by the comments, the insights that you shared, and that is what is going to keep our conversation going on in order to have global solidarity for peace, for poverty eradication, and to building a better world. Thank you so much for Dr. Nikki Dipina, Dr. Martha Lescano, Dr. Vedabayas Kundu, who are part of the core team behind GPLT's work, especially with young people, especially with nonviolent communication and servant leadership. Thank you for Sakshi Shivani for being a co-moderator and organizing the session. Also, I need to thank Mani Tyagi for being the person who was handling the communication platform, ensuring that there was effective communication. Thank you, Mani, for that. Also, a special thank to the audience who are here, especially to Dr. Yusufi, uh, Dr. Shainul. There are so many names, I cannot tell the names of everyone, but thank you so much for being here and having us together as the audience and the speakers. And I think together we can bring forth the legacy of Nelson Mandela to reality by doing at least one small action in order to inspire change. So we are the people who can be the legacy of Nelson Mandela. And I'm pretty sure everyone in this call is doing something in order to preserve, in order to take forward the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Thank you so much. Before we end the call, I would like to take a group photograph. So can I ask everyone to switch on their cameras that we can have a nice photograph? We are waiting for some of our friends. Please switch on the camera. Right, so we take there are two screens actually. One more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Bye-bye.
Until next time. Bye.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, and so nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. It was so nice talking to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nikki. Bye, Marta. Take care. See you on August 8th.